wonderful ceremony. That, to me, would have been expected, but yet it didn't happen.
The mayor of Aurora, Texas, Barbara Brammer, has spent many years researching the town's history and believes her input may solve the Aurora legend.
The legend, from what I have been able to read, started after several disasters that we had in the city.
The first of those disasters was a brutal boll weevil infestation which destroyed Aurora's primary cash crop, cotton.
Shortly thereafter, there was a fire on the west side of the town that destroyed several buildings, and several people lost their lives.
And the deaths did not stop there. Shortly after the fire, a massive outbreak of spotted fever nearly wiped out the remaining population of Aurora.
It was in 1896. Everybody tried to leave it could. The whole city at one time was under quarantine, and the only time they left their houses was whenever they went to the cemetery to bury someone.
In the early 1890s, Aurora saw a glimmer of hope. The railroad was set to lay track in the town and provide much-needed economic relief for the townsfolk.
They got as far as laying a spur in this direction for the railroad, and then another railroad was going to be coming from out west, and it got within 27 miles of this before it was stopped. And it became known then as the railroad that never was.
The town was crippled economically, and the resident spirits were crushed. It is this string of events that some believe might provide the motive for the Aurora legend.
Aurora definitely needed the railroad to save everything that it had going for it at that time. When it didn't come through, it started downhill. People started moving away. I believe the people who were left in this town needed something to look forward to, and this could be the reason that someone made up the story.
Although Mayor Brammer's theory goes a long way to explaining the legend, skeptics continue their assault on believers.
The debunkers said Judge Proctor did not have a windmill, okay, so therefore the whole story is bogus. According to Charlie Stevens, no, he did not technically have a windmill, but he had a wooden derrick windlass, which is a wooden tower used to haul up the sump on his well. So that's a matter of semantics. There was a wooden tower there that the thing could have crashed into.
In order to find evidence, I found one of the metal angle brackets that supported the wood arm of the windlass. One metal bracket is still there at the scene.
Another element of the legend has come under attack from skeptics. The initial identity of the spaceman came from T.J. Weems, a local member of the U.S. Army Signal Corps. It is argued that Weems was only the town blacksmith and in no way an expert on astronomy, like the newspaper claimed.
According to Charlie Stevens, T.J. Weems was also an amateur astronomer, had his own telescope, and was widely known as a lay expert on astronomy. So that argument that he didn't have any knowledge that's pretty specious too.
Despite the many explanations that researchers, journalists, and skeptics have for the Aurora legend, there is at least one thing that everyone can agree on.
As far as I'm concerned, it's still a good story.
It's a good story.
I wasn't around then, but my granddad could tell a pretty good story.
In Texas, we have an old saying that never let the truth stand in the way of a good story.
After 3 decades, Hayden Hughes returns to Aurora. But can he solve the riddle of the mysterious airship once and for all?
We have maybe one of the most scientific finds of the 20th century right here behind us.
It has been more than 100 years since the quiet of Aurora, Texas was allegedly shattered by the crash of a mysterious airship. Like the incident in Roswell, New Mexico, that supposedly took place in 1947, the truth may never be known. But to some ufologists, this case from 1897 may be the key to solving the whole UFO phenomena once and for all.
The significance of the Aurora encounter was that there was a body left to be studied, and that there were hundreds of sightings of the same description over the central United States during that time. We see what happened at Roswell, we see what happened at some other sightings, but this one held the answer, and because it was before modern day censorship, that's a key. It's still there. No one went in to cover it up.
While this former boomtown used to boast 3,000 inhabitants, there are only about 400 people living there today. The town may have decreased in size, but the controversy surrounding its most famous visitor has only grown. If nothing else, the tale of the mysterious airship crash has served to polarize Aurora, dividing believers from skeptics.
Aurora's big claim to fame has to be the legend. It's the thing that has lasted longer than anything else. Some people think it's a funny joke going around. They do not believe that this actually happened, and they'll laugh at you because they say it's such a hoax.
Well, we're dealing with belief systems here. And I found this when I first began to investigate this in the little town of Aurora. About half the people said, no, it was just a big hoax. And the other half said, no, it really happened.
I had a feeling that they thought people were laughing at the little town of Aurora, even though the population there now had absolutely nothing to do with the airship mystery. I just always got the sense that this is not something they wanted to embrace.
Despite the town's ambivalence towards its famous legend, in 1976 they installed a plaque at the cemetery that supposedly houses the aliens' remains. Since the actual stone marker was stolen more than 30 years ago, it is impossible to know the precise location of the pilot's body.
To me, the only thing at this point that would satisfy it, it's pretty obvious we're not going to find a grave site to dig in. So, secondary, let's go to the well.
Although the windmill above the well no longer exists, the former Proctor property was purchased by Brawley Oates in 1945. Long-standing rumors hold that the well on the property was contaminated by radioactive debris. More than 100 years later, the legend has also grown to include a mysterious patch of ground that lacks vegetation. When the mayor shared details of this rumor with Hayden Hughes in 2005, it renewed his interest in solving the mystery.
Aurora, to me, had the most possibility of providing evidence that could confirm or deny the existence of the airships and the occupant. And when we left empty-handed, I saw it kind of as a failure because the evidence was still there. Maybe 2 feet under where we were standing, but still we were unable to walk away with something we could really go forth and say, all right, here's something. Let's investigate that further.
For the first time in over a quarter of a century, Hayden decided to revisit the place where it all began, the crash site.
This is the alleged crash site of the airship. We're on top of the hill, valley all the way around. This is where Proctor had his property. His windmill was here, and we had a well, which was later cemented in.
Certain areas are still accessible, but this fence stands in front of Judge Proctor's original well. Several requests to gain access to that part of the property were made for this program, but no calls were returned.
My gut feeling tells me we're onto it and there's something there, and I can't dispel that.
So close to where he feels the answers to the airship mystery lie, Hayden Hughes' frustration is palpable.
We have maybe one of the most scientific finds of the 20th century right here behind us, and we can't get to it because of this big bird cage that's been built over and cemented in, sealing below the evidence that may have contaminated the soil around it that is keeping vegetation from growing today. And if it could be possible to go down, dig up, whatever, that might be what it takes to put it into this legend over all these years.
If we could find out what is in that well, we would know if there's any radiation occurring there, or even parts of the crash site. When the craft blew up and exploded, there could be pieces down in that well.
Most people search for just what's on the surface and don't take the time to really dig down and find out. You know, it's interesting to note that we're back here where it all started. Right here on this very site. Time has come and gone. A lot of stories has come and gone. Until we can get on the other side, until we can get some good soil samples or get down in the well, this is where the story's going to stay, just rolling along and continuing to grow.
If the entire legend of the airship crash of 1897 is a hoax, then an amazing practical joke has been played on everyone by S.E. Hayden, the man who wrote the original newspaper article for the Dallas Morning News. But without concrete evidence, ufologists can neither debunk the hoax nor prove the legend to be true.
There are lots of legends and stories going around that are passed from word of mouth and through newspaper clippings and so on. But we deal with the facts. We investigate UFOs, and we try to prove beyond the question of a doubt when we investigate a case that it was a UFO.
I would say that the probability of the crash actually happening is probably 85%. I think there's strong evidence for that.
The Aurora spaceship crash of 1897, I believe, is the smoking gun of the UFO controversy. Because in earlier years, the debunkers would say, well, it's just misidentified aircraft, satellites, commercial, military, maybe even secret government test craft. Well, I often thought, wouldn't it be great if we had a well-documented instance of the UFO before any of that was in the air? And we do, with the Aurora, Texas crash of 1897.
We are fairly sure there was a crash at that site. I mean, all the physical evidence, all the stories about the people that were available at the time all go together and they all fit. It's not a mistaken identity and it's not a tall tale.
My conclusion, in a nutshell, something happened in 1897 that to this day we cannot explain. We can eliminate a lot of stuff. We know it wasn't a balloon. We know it wasn't an airplane. What was it? I don't know. UFO? Obviously. Where the UFO came from, that's the big mystery that, quite frankly, will probably never be solved.
Will the ultimate truth ever be known about the Aurora case?
I don't know. I would like to think that there is an alien in the grave, but it may come down to there's nothing in the grave. That's the legend.